All right, welcome back. Pace Law Firm, pacelawfirm.com, joined by Al Pace, CEO and founder of Pace Law Firm, as well as Nick Simone, the president of Pace Law Firm, talking about the old days. Going back a little bit, celebrating 40 years of Pace Law Firm. Al, take us back a little bit. You're leaving school, you're deciding, I'm going to be a big lawyer, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, and Pace Law Firm forms how?
Well, initially, when I first finished articling, I got a job with a firm. And one of the partners in that firm actually became, I think, Minister of Finance in Ontario or some other such position he was having later on in his career. But it was a pretty great firm. And I, after about a year, thought, I think I can do this on my own. And I absolutely underestimated in a huge, huge way what I was about to get into. And for the next 10 years or so, I was living off the bank. I mean, back in those days, the bank was throwing money at young professionals. So you were able to borrow quite a bit. The line of credit kept on creeping up. And things then started to turn around, but it wasn't all that easy being a sole practitioner back in 1981 and trying to eke out a living when the expenses were sort of getting much higher than I ever anticipated, and the revenues, as with any new business, were lower than I ever anticipate. And so that's how I started. But eventually I started to expand, and I didn't expand because I wanted to build a big firm. People often ask me, when did you come up with a plan to grow your firm? At one point we had almost 200 employees at the firm. And there was no plan. I mean, it was quite simple. I always had more clients that I could handle. So I started off with one assistant clerk, and then we were just too busy. We just couldn't get everything all done. So then we hired an assistant. Then we hired another clerk. Then we hired an articling student. And then we hired the articling student back, but then you need an assistant to the articling, and so on and so forth. And it was just a very organic process, and it was just a question of servicing clientele. And that was always my mantra from day one. It was just service. I had one of the first cell phones, I think, in the country because I'm into technology in a big way. And I remember carrying it around with me over my shoulder like a big...
one of the big bricks or something like that?
That's right. Okay. So it was like a little briefcase with a strap, and you'd open it up, and it was like a regular telephone that you were carrying around with you. But I put my phone number, my cell number on my card from day one. And I know many of my colleagues says, "What are you doing?" I don't even answer the phone after 5 o'clock. And that was maybe more of the norm, where you're a professional, you work during your 9 to 5 hours, and that's it. But I wasn't really used to that. My father was a family physician that did house calls right up until he retired, and into the weekends and nights, and it just didn't seem like it was all that unusual to have a client call me on a Saturday afternoon.
Everything you're talking about seems like, sir, I was going to ask you, you're saying you came out, it was daunting, there was a lot of expenses, there's probably a lot of people who want to, create a big law firm. It comes down to service, building that. I mean, what would you attribute you being a success where other people have probably stumbled?
I think two things that I just sort of alluded to. One is accessibility. One thing that I always was accessible. People could always get in touch with me. And if I didn't answer the phone right away, I'd be calling them back within a very short period of time. Number two is service. And number three, I think I really cared about clients. I know back in the day, there was this philosophy that professionals, doctors and lawyers, shouldn't get too close to their clients. You've got to keep a professional distance, and you've got to be clinical in terms of the way you approach. I never bought into that. My father wasn't like that. And I get to really like my clients, and we have all these people that have sad stories and have very, very sad backgrounds, things like that. And they've fallen on hard times. They've had all kinds of issues happening to them in their life, and sometimes they're not. They can be quite irascible. They can be quite sometimes not that friendly. But once you break through that, you find out that there's a human being there, and they've got a life, and they've got aspirations just like you do. And if you get to know all those things about them, and you get to know them better, you can advocate for them that much more effectively. And that's the key, I think.
Nick, we're going to bring you in a second to talk about the future of the firm. But Al, just to cap off kind of over those 40 years, is the legislation the biggest change, or what do you think has been the biggest change that you've seen in the practice of law that you've been involved in?
Well, I think that there's a number of factors. One is competition. There's more and more lawyers coming onto the scene every single day. And I think that there's legislative changes, of course, that one needs to keep abreast of. Back in the day, there were a lot of lawyers that were more comfortable with general practice. It was, I think, much to do with we had an articling process and a bar admissions course process where you really learned the practical aspects of a lot of areas of law. And that's no longer there. And we've got the American-style bar exams. You get your solicitor's exam and your barrister's exam, and that's it. But one of the changes for me, one thing that I always realized is that lawyers aren't necessarily good managers. In fact, most lawyers aren't good managers at all. We get absolutely no training in terms of how to run a business. And law is a business. And so years ago, I decided that the way to go is to run a law firm more like you do a corporation. Bring in a professional to do the things that need to be done, to do the HR, to do the marketing, to make sure that all your bookkeeping and everything else is done properly. Corporations know how to do this. They realize that there's service that's most important. You've got to have the right technology. You've got to get the right training. Lawyers often kind of sit back and just think things will sort of work themselves out. And I found that that's been a difference between the way that I've approached my firm and maybe some others have approached theirs. And Nick has a tremendous amount of experience and expertise in running businesses. He's been involved with a number of larger entities that were doing quite well, but he just takes them to another solar system. And he's been with us now for a couple of years. We've been working together on different projects for a dozen years, but he's finally been free to come and join us a couple of years ago, and he's a game changer.
Really quickly before we get to you, Nick, started with you and a clerk, or you and an assistant. What is it at now, employee-wise?
I think now we're in the 140, 150 range in terms of overall client employees and
numerous locations. Yeah, you've got
yes,
Toronto,
we have several. Yes,
yeah, Collingwood. So Nick
and Kenora
excuse me, Nick. The future of the firm, I know that Pace Law Firm has certainly staked itself out as an expert in personal injury law and other areas of law, but you wanted to talk about where the firm is going. So if you'd like to touch on some of that.
Yeah, so Al and I, Al alluded to it. I've known Al for probably about a dozen years. And in that time period, Al, I was on the advisory board here at Pace Law. And Al always spoke about making the firm much bigger than what it was in terms of the areas of practice. So personal injury and litigation is where Al started off about a dozen years before, about 12 years ago. He included immigration, which right now we have probably one of the best immigration teams. Sounds biased, but we have probably one of the best immigration teams in Ontario for sure, maybe even Canada. But Al always spoke about turning it into a full service firm. And really, when I came on as the president of the firm in March of 2020, right at the beginning of COVID, we really put that plan into effect. We've always done will work, wills and estates, so we've expanded on that. We do some estate litigation, but we've added 3 or 4 areas which have really turned the firm into something very unique. We added, about a year ago, we added real estate, and our real estate division now is doing phenomenal. It is growing. We do residential closings. We can do small commercial closings. Shortly after that, we added family law, an area which is obviously growing, and especially during the pandemic, families having issues. So we have a family law division. Most recently, we added a corporate commercial division. And the corporate commercial division is really going to focus on business issues. So anybody that has a business that has a concern about their business can contact us about doing some corporate and commercial work. And we plan to expand even beyond that. We're talking about employment law. We're talking about a number of areas. But being that 2021 was the 40-year anniversary of PACE Law, I think that we're now starting to see the vision that Al talked about when I met him maybe 10, 12 years ago as being a full-service firm. Again, this may sound biased, but PACE Law has an excellent reputation. It's very well known in the community. The quality of the lawyers and the people that work here are phenomenal. We have excellent lawyers, excellent staff. To Al's point, we have, we do everything internally. We have our own advertising team, HR, and all of the support. But really the goal is to turn it into a firm that with, I think, close to 40,000 clients that we've served over the 40 years, that they can call us and we can take care of any of their needs.
Excellent. 40 years. So looking back, and you're looking at that lawyer from 40 years ago, any advice you would have given him those 40 years ago to get him off on a different start, or would you have changed anything? Or
Yeah, I would probably tell him, stay where you are. It's a great deal. You're going to do a lot better, just not having all the headaches and everything else. But in reality, I enjoyed every minute of it. It was a challenge. And initially, when I went into practice on my own, I did a little bit of everything. I was doing a family law matter one day. I had a little criminal matter the next day. I was doing a lot of real estate, did a little corporate thing. I did this. And you were never really all that steady on your feet. So you were always a little bit unsure because you're up against a person who's done that area of law for 20, 30 years, and he knows it all. So what we've attempted to do here and what we are doing here is to make sure that we have those mentors in play. So in those areas, the real estate, the corporate commercial, and family that we've just added on not long ago, these are all real experts in their field. And as we expand these areas, the junior lawyers and clerks and everything will have someone in the team that really knows what what they're doing, and that can train them and teach them on the nuances of the law, because everybody who graduates can figure out what the law is. It's all how it's applied and the nuancing. And so when you have that, when you have the experts, and this is what Nick is really good at, he's finding some phenomenal talent and bringing it into the firm. And then training, that's the other thing that Nick's brought in. We have training once a week just about for everybody here. And it's an ongoing thing. It's not like you get trained and then you kind of forget about it. And then so there's a lot of things that are happening. And I would have told that guy 40 years ago. I think that just go with your gut, and that's what I did. And again, service, accessibility, and just make sure that you take care of everybody, including your employees.
fantastic. Congratulations on 40 years. Looking forward to 40 more. Hopefully we're there to see those. And Nick, congratulations on being president of the firm, and good luck in the future. I know it's going to be great.
Thank you, Sean.
Thanks, Sean.
Thanks for joining us, pacelawfirm.com. Make sure to look us up if you need any help at all, legal-wise or otherwise. Bye-bye.